fucking dog in here! Go, fucking burn it! Ah! Trying to process! You! Trying to process! Kill jump rope! Hard shit! Fuck I said, fucking don't start shit!
While not yet capital M mainstream, the use of the term NTR has been growing for some time now. In accordance, so too has the number of people asking what it means. To this effect, the most common answer I see people give is that NTR is cheating / cuckolding spicy content. Fetish stuff. This is wrong.
No, that's wrong!
Let me explain why. The first challenge in defining the term is that NTR doesn't always stand for the same thing. The term is most often used as a shortened form of the Japanese word netorare, but it can also be used as a shortened form of other words like netori or netorase. While there's a minutia of difference in what these words mean, they can generally be clumped together in that they all refer to genres of H texts where a status quo relationship changes via an encounter with another. These changed relationships may be the result of cheating in the case of netorare or cuckolding in the case of netorase, but they don't have to be. Even though there are at least 3 subtypes of NTR, the root word for the term will generally be the same. According to Jisho.com, the Japanese verb netoru means something like to steal another's spouse, to steal another's lover. Reading the Chinese characters literally, the word means something like to take toru, the person someone implied, sleeps with implied, neru. Looking only at the etymology then, it seems like the proposed meanings could make sense. However, the meaning of words doesn't only come from how they are used, how they are spelt, but also how they are used. One reason why these labels aren't necessarily good fits is that the relationships these texts describe aren't always romantic ones. NTR can be about a marriage interrupted, but it can also be about a siblinghood interrupted. A characteristic counterexample of the claim that NTR is about cheating, etc., is the subgenre of so-called MTR, or mom NTR texts. This is a subcategory of NTR texts where the central relationship is that of a son to his mother. Even though the mother may be married in an MTR text, the text is more concerned about how the mom's encounter with an other changes her relationship with her son. Generally, how the son's coming to see his mom as a sexual being changes his relationship with her. In other words, while cheating and cuckolding are possible answers to the question of what is NTR, whatever it is that is roiling deep there underneath, that which beats at the heart of the beast, can manifest in yet unknown and different ways too. One of these is what VNDB classifies as netorare type C. This is distinguished from other types of NTR. Distinguished from other types of NTR, netorare type C is characterized by unconsensual sex with another, where the relationship with the other never becomes consensual. That is SA, grape by any other name. In some ways, I don't know what to do with the fact that there's this subcategory of NTR that's just non-con. It's clearly important enough that the visual novel database gives it its own taxonomy. Now, with this being said, VNDB's netorare type A, B, and C taxonomy speaks to the slipperiness of categorizing NTR. Even if one is morally opposed to cheating or cuckolding, I think there's surely a difference between these things and forced non-con sex. Yet they all live under the same house, the same sort of category of NTR. If nothing else, netorare type C is an evocative site for talking about the problematic stereotypes these texts have a propensity for trafficking in. These include but are not limited to minstrel-esque depictions of black men as hypersexual, violent, and scheming, and of fat men as lazy, licentious, and greedy, etc. In the Torate Type C, these are the dominant profiles of who the rapist others are/is. At the same time, it would be reductive to say that NTR is only stereotyped non-consexual fantasies. This is a face that NTR may present with, but it is not the being itself. A better way of squaring away the existence and prevalence of problematic stereotypes in NTR texts, or a way, is to say that NTR happens to be one of the current evocative sites for articulating these ideas. NTR texts are not inventing new discourses, is kind of my point. The site itself is not necessarily to blame for the symptoms that emerge through it, though it's nevertheless worth being aware of the fact that of those emergences and where they emerge. Moving briefly into speculation, a significant portion of the monetary backing which fuels the production of NTR texts seems to originate from or is otherwise tied to or associated with the West. And this in turn is to say that because of this power relation, the Western gaze seems to inform the contents of these texts. Which of course is relevant because NTR has also proved itself as an evocative site for imaging fantasies of power. This is different from power fantasies. In addition to the ground level industries of production, there are also parallel industries, such as those for translation and dissemination of texts. These industries are tailored to the Western gaze, are also tailored to the Western gaze, or informed by its power. This isn't to say that there's no demand for NTR texts outside of the West, nor is it to say that the Western gaze is the only informing factor for how these texts end up looking in the way that they do. Rather, it's to say that the power dynamics seem slanted in favor of the West, such that its gaze and the demands therein inform how these texts come to look the way that they do in significant ways. Long story short, I think that this is one of the main motivating factors for how problematic stereotypes find themselves so frequently represented in NTR texts. The money comes from the West, and with it the West's problematic gaze gets inculcated into the flesh. That's not to say that there aren't anti-black sentiments in East Asia, for example, but that these things mean something specific when consumed in the context of the Western gaze. Perhaps this is different from the image's meaning when consumed elsewhere, perhaps not. That ultimately doesn't matter, I don't think.
It's just a matter of fucking time until I develop nasolabial lines indicating the first signs of being too old to legally possess porter cigarettes, a credit card, a Mickey, a rum replacement. No amount of chocolate milk or toast as pets. No sledding and no sunny day lemonade booth will restore my wasted youth. And I've been masturbating far more frequently. I've been joining dating websites recently. I could use a patient, sturdy, but level-headed man to care for a girl like me. Put my lips on anything, baby. You can pineapple party drinks lately. I've taught nearly almost everyone in my life into wanting to poison me.
It's fairly easy to moralize cheating. You just say people who cheat commit a moral evil. Framing NTR vis-a-vis cheating, then, lets it inherit this ease of moralization. And to be clear, people do moralize NTR. And I mean, I guess that's fine. There's nothing wrong with disliking or hating or even saying it's evil or whatever. But I guess what I want to try and uncover is what this conflation might be doing. It's easy to square away NTR's cheating or cuckolding fetish media. However, NTR can also be about swinging or polyamory or non-con. This is a wide range of dynamics that to me don't immediately clump together, especially not under the proposed labels of cheating or cuckolding. And I think that's kind of the point. NTR is elusive. It's a site to collapse all these different modes of deviance into one shared sloopy milieu. I mean, See, for example, when fans of NTR are thrown off by that an NTR text they're reading is actually about a different kind of NTR than what they're into. Swinging fans thrown off when cheating becomes the focus. Humiliation fans thrown off when everything is consensual. NTR is a blown-out speaker, that is to say. Yet it still thumps with a beat. There's something going on here yet. Because while the term NTR may be somewhat new, the thing it depicts stretches back far beyond its invention. In a way, though, NTR might be something of an apotheosis of these fictions of the other. The conflation comes to a head, it reaches a tipping point. Maybe, I don't know. So if NTR isn't about cheating or whatever, what is it about? What does this mean, a relationship changed via an encounter with another? Well, I'm not confident that I can find the right words for this all by myself, but I will try. And then when trying gives way, turn to the hostage words of others. One reason I offer this vaguish definition of NTR is to leave room for the root of the thing to be exposed. Because while NTR often coexists with spicy content, it isn't necessarily predicated on that, I don't believe. The writhing mass can be non-sexual and still be writhing all the same. In other words, spiciness is not so distinct a creature as to be isolated from the types of representation from other types. Stripping back the veneer of sex, a second sheeting force reveals itself. That is, NTR is about the objectification of a relationship. It is about a desire for the desire of the other. For the vast majority, but not all, of self-classified NTR texts, this involves a heteromasculine desire for a feminine object. In other words, NTR has emerged as an expedient mechanism for articulating chiefly male heterosexual fantasies. In NTR, the subject's desire inhabits a second external form. There's another man who wants what you want, and thus it's legitimate to want it. It's a hot commodity. And the man who wants this thing is an embodiment of your perception of masculinity. A man who takes what he wants, someone dominant, etc. This is a fictive form of masculinity, to be clear. Manliness as imagined by the male gaze. In duplicating the subject's desire outwards, NTR normalizes and perhaps even pardons the subject from the weight of reckoning with his desire and what it means to objectify someone in such a way. Even though the subject and the other have similar desires, the other's desire is hyperbolized and violent. The fictive other is the one you want officer. Yeah, I broke the law, but he did it so much worse than me. And so comparatively, did I even break the law at all? The principal desiring force becomes located outside, out there. The subject's desire doesn't go away, but rather gets a secondary apparatus to work itself out through. In constructing this fictive other, there's also a partial desire to be this other, and then from there a tertiary desire to be the subject of this other's desire. In other words, NTR fetishizes both the other and the secondary partner, often a woman, in a way where it's about wanting to become both of them. The subject himself is not enough, he is insufficient, so he turns to fantasy and the invention of an other to validate and give form to his desires, to make them really fictive. Yet the subject wants to be the other only in a fictive sense. NTR texts rarely reckon with the lived reality of what it would be to exist in the body of such an other for a continued length of time. If NTR is the current zeitgeist for articulating this type of desire, this structure of a relationship changed via an encounter with an other, one precursor would be the home invasion genre. Here too, it is about a desire being reified by that it is desired by an other. The rich person's things are valuable because some other wants to steal them. It is desirable to be wealthy. Here too, it is not the subject himself that is desired, but what his desires objectify. Material things, stuff, maybe his wife or whatever. which is desired and sought after. This gesture is not inherently bad. However, this gesture is not inherently bad or problematic. Take the examples of funny games and government plates. I think that both are quite exquisite texts, and they are, and they are ones which are principally embroiled in it. They're about home invasion. Perhaps they are critical of this genre, but then at the same time they also reproduce it, so they cannot fully condemn it outright. They too find utility in the form. Because this is what it is, I think. I think there's something powerful here, potentially. Wanting to be seen, exploding the self in all these different ways, different narrators, different forms.
I hover above you, like put out your mouth, I become you, opening of the mouth, unlawful possession, jellyfish and goes sweat deep in, hollow swelters, disconnection, pupils swell, my entrance, hijack, no questions asked, stretch you out like latex mask, my scissors rope and tear.
Come, fuck a pardon here.
And yet the conflation is the point. It is to obscure that which lies at the heart, in part. And it is to categorize atypicality with violence and deviance. What is NTR? It is the latest form of an ancient impulse. It is a genre of fetish spicy content. It is cheating, it is cuckolding, it is a relationship changed via an encounter with an other. It is the reifying of a subject's objectifying desire via the translocation of that desire onto a fictive other. It is honesty and profound contortion. It is a blown out speaker. It is a beating heart, a bleeding limb. It is a plea for things to be different, a fleeting awareness that the subjects of power still lack something, that money is not the be all end all, that they are empty yet. And at the end of the day, if when asked, people define the term as just cheating or cuckolding, then it is that too, because that is how people use the word in these instances. Even though this is a sawed-off categorization, and it is wrong and reductive, it is also correct. There's no box that can step outside of time and space and contain the true presence of an idea. Meaning will always be partialized and flittled with half-truths and misunderstandings, and these will, in time, grow into understandings of their own. And the primordial being will move somewhere else. And money and power will seek a different muse to relieve their impossible urges, and the sun will rise again the following day. Ask for any eggs?
Get your fucking dog in here! Go, fuck up on you! Ah! Dino Project! Yeah! Dino Project! Kill a jump rope! Hard shit! Fuck I said, fuck it don't start shit!
Come, fuck a pardon here. Come, fuck a pardon here.
children's room. Yeah.